How are you doing, Chuck?
Pretty good, pretty good. And a couple of things real quick here before we get into your total report. What I think about, Gitmo, Khalid Muhammad 9/11 trial and all that, and what went on at Gitmo and the water reporting. And I was going to ask you, didn't they waterboard one guy, and he's the one that gave up the driver that eventually led them to the bad guy?
There were actually about 4 detainees who were waterboarded. Now, KSM, who is the mastermind of 9/11, as well as the guy who cut off Daniel Pearl's head with a short knife, not a machete, quick situation. It was a really devastating video to watch. But he was waterboarded the most. Now, everybody will say that there was, they were waterboarded 140 times. They were waterboarded 80 times. And when they use that number, technically they are accurate with this, but that means how many actual pores they get on their face. So let's say Khalid Muhammad had 130 pores. I mean, that's 130, bottles of water being poured on his head to make him feel like he's drowning. And he knew how to beat it. He knew how to count and hold his breath. And while I don't necessarily agree that, this kind of torture or this kind of, interrogation actually worked, I think what Gina Haspel was talking about when she had her confirmation hearing, she didn't, embrace it and say, we're going to go out and continue on with this. She came at it, she owned it and said, look, we were all scared after 9/11. We didn't know if we were going to get hit again. So we used measures, we got attorneys' approvals, and looking back, we will refine our program so we know what's going on. So, I mean, it's, the lunacy of this, I think, comes down to this week there was a ruling in Gitmo where Khalid Sheikh Mohammed is going to be able to testify in the hearings or the trial of the family members who are finally getting to sue Saudi Arabia and other countries. And KSM obviously has been, doesn't have money anymore, but he's going to be allowed to testify. He's going to be allowed to go. I mean, it just I don't know. They'll do it in camera, which means he'll be at Gitmo and they put a camera in the room and that's how he'll be there. Yeah, so they won't. The terrorists that are there. Well, I mean, this week, Trump, I think this we could say this was probably the best week ever for Donald Trump. He captured 5 of the top ISIS individuals, just missed al-Baghdadi, but got the top 5 guys, so I'm assuming they're going through, interrogations, and, I think we're all kind of waiting to see if they're going to get sent to Gitmo, because nobody's been sent to Gitmo, so we'll see if they arrive at Gitmo to, go through the system, or hopefully they just do, as the battlefield, interviews and then drop them off at their neighbor's house with all these American flags and let the neighborhood take care of it. Yep. Well, okay.
But talking about Trump's on a roll, let's see, President Obama paid $1.8 billion of our taxpayer money to Iran to release U.S. hostages 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And Trump tweeted last night, well, I secured the freedom of 3 American captives from North Korea for no money.
Yeah. It is. Yeah. Well, and I think that, what's moving forward, what the listeners need to keep in mind is that a lot of people that I've spoke with at think tanks in DC here this week, and I attended one of the Iranian democracy conventions over the weekend. And a lot of people are saying that getting rid of this deal is going to hasten the regime change, and it's going to make it happen clearly more quickly, and that President Trump most likely reassured the president of France to say, look, I know you guys do a lot of business, but we're going to get through this regime change, and then everything will kind of go back to normal. And I think that's how Trump is kind of working with the allies on this. But let's keep in mind, this wasn't a treaty either. And we're hearing John Kerry and former president come out. This wasn't a treaty. This could never, this was just a piece of paper that were signed between two countries, and it wasn't binding. So what the president in essence did was just say, you know what, we're just not going to be in that agreement anymore, and he had every right of doing so. If the Democrats really want...
It sounds to me like it was a lot of Iranian collusion.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Could you imagine if Trump just said, well, look, I signed a piece of paper with Russia, then he'll go, well, we're going to have an investigation.
Yeah. Well, I think that, yeah.
When you say regime change, it comes quicker.
Okay.
Now, they don't have an election to change the regime, do they?
No. Yeah, what's going to happen is you're going to see, we're continuing to monitor and watch the protests that continue on a daily basis. You're not getting a lot of this footage in this country. I have no idea why, media outlets here are not talking about this big change going on in Iran. And there are simply more of them than there are of the mullahs and Ayatollah and President Rouhani. There are more people living in that country in poverty who are rising up and saying enough is enough. We want to get back to, being able to go to college and have jobs and travel around the world and get back to normal. And these are young people. We've discussed this. Average age is 31. They're beginning to realize that the tide is turning inside Iraq in Iran, and Iran is actually helping this process by not giving the money back to the people and confiscating money from banks and investing in terrorism with Hezbollah in Yemen, in Syria, in Iraq, Afghanistan. I mean, the Iranians are doing this. And then the other, I just want to make one other.
The largest percentage of the Iranians have had a taste of Western freedom, haven't they?
Yeah.
So they know what it tastes like.
Exactly. Yeah, and even since 2009, when we had the Green Revolution, that President Obama turned his back on the Iranian people. Then they have since quieted down. But the young people were able to get on the internet and see what's going on around the world. So I think the internet is a powerful tool that these young people are binding themselves together, and they decided that instead of having 8 political parties all fighting amongst each other, we're all going to unite as one so we can go through regime change. And quietly they've been working their way up within all of these different jobs. In one thing in particular, there was the nuclear worm that was put in the nuclear power plant there. That was one of the organizations. They worked with the U.S. to kind of get that information in and put that bug in that program that in essence really stopped the nuclear program until they could figure it out and rebuild it. But so I mean, you're looking at people who are working with the United States quietly, but this is a revolution President Trump is going to support, but he's not going to send boots on the ground. But word today is that they're trying to figure out ways to get the internet in there so it stays on, so these people can communicate, because that's a big deal. They need to be able to communicate.
Yeah, the last thing I saw, Kimberly, was the same old, burning the American flag and death to America.
Yeah, that was in Parliament, so.
Yeah, that you really want to be sweet with, and they were calling that even after Obama made the treaty.
Yeah.
Death to America.
The regime is out of date. Their citizens are no longer interested in what the Ayatollah has to offer any longer. The mosques are empty. I believe we've talked about that. That's a huge red flag that they've had it. They're done. They don't want to be indoctrinated any further by the clerics. And you're going to see it's going to, who's going to come out on top and claim the power? We're not sure, but they will have an interim government, and they have, there's a lot of people that work their ways up through a lot of the bureaucratic, like the agricultural area, the nuclear program, how to operate the government, and so they can kind of, try not to skip too many beats. And there'll be a couple weeks of like turmoil, but some of the people I'm talking with said that this is going to be a pretty relatively easy overthrow. The people are just going to simply come in and say, that's it, enough. And the people who have been running the terrorist, organizations in that country, they'll be going off and probably trying to get deals so they can retire in France and get their billions of dollars. That's how they think this is going to end.
Two things, number one, it shows you how the people of the United States, me, okay, included, were indoctrinated because we keep referring to it, as the peace treaty that was signed, something that Obama did, peace treaty, feel the paper again.
Yeah.
The other thing I'm going to ask you is the Secretary of State,
John Kerry.
Mike.
Yeah. Yeah,
He's supposed to be going over there and having some talks with him.
Yeah, he's been over there. Now he's had 2 meetings, and of course on the second trip he brought home those hostages. I stayed up and watched that, and that was, one of those moments, a shining moment in this country when they flew in. They had the huge, giant, American flag hoisted up by 2 fire trucks, and they were treated, like dignitaries, and it was just a seminal moment, I think, with the Trump administration.
And you're talking about North Korea.
Yeah.
I was wondering if he was going to go and do anything.
No.
As far as I know he got involved with North Korea.
Yeah. Well, he's not right now. Yeah. Well, I think once they get closer to regime change, like I said, the U.S. officials and diplomats behind the lines are trying to get some tools to these young people so they can continue the revolution. And, they're simple tools. We're not sending boots on the ground. We're not doing that in any event, although General Vodal, who's one of the leaders of the U.S. military over there in the region, said that by ending this deal, that it would open up another avenue to take care of Iran, and I would, gather that meant we could probably drop bombs on the country. Although I don't think it's going to come to that. I really think that it's not going to be a huge violent thing as a lot of people think it's going to be Syria, and it's going to be quicker. And the people who have been committing all these war crimes and atrocities against people, they're going to try to fly and get under the radar and leave the country and get out alive. That's where it's going to end. And you're starting to see some of the pressure mount. And then now with these new sanctions that the U.S. has, we're going to see even more of that. And these people, as their economy continues to get squeezed, they're ready to go. And a lot of wealthy people of Iran have left the country and have immigrated to primarily Canada, but a lot of them here in the United States. So they see and they support the regime, but they've already left. So, when you start seeing this mass thing, it's, I don't think, going to be a huge fight. Ayatollah Khomeini's in his 80s. I don't think he's going to be really fighting too much. I think he'd probably be fighting to stay alive somewhere. But it's going to happen before February. It just is going to happen. This administration is going about it quietly, as they should. And Pompeo has been a long time, advocate for regime change in Iran. So they're finding a lot of, room for discussion here, and they've actually found an administration that wants to work on that. Not war, but just transitioning out of this so they can regain their footing in the region and become an ally to, to us and, to the European Union, which is most, closely allied with them.
Yeah, you mentioned in your latest report about the them in the House Foreign Affairs Committee as Roy.
Yeah.
Talking about this, even under the deal, the Obama Kerry deal,
Yeah.
How does it stand right now? You know, is there
Well,
United Nations go in and check them out?
well, the IAEA will already continue the inspections. The Iranian regime has said we're going to try to, stick to the, some of the tenets within the agreement because that, bodes well for the European Union. But I just, they're very close to breaking their back here. And like I said, this is not going to be regime change with American boots on the ground. And this is going to be somewhat, there's going to be people flee. There will be, people that are murdered. But I think the one thing that, I worry about with Iran is that they have a history of when a new regime comes in that they, basically kill everybody that was, previously in that administration. So, the people I spoke with said they're very cognizant of that. They don't want to go out and kill everybody. They want to turn them over to the UN. But with the nuclear deal, they're not really doing a whole lot, and they don't have any money left. They're funding terrorism all over the world, and that to me is, that's the problem. And where are they getting this money? And they're not taking care of their people, and their people are tired of it. It's stunning to watch these protests and wonder. I wonder as a journalist, why is this not on the TV? It should be the news.
Yeah. It is amazing that it's not, getting the exposure.
Yeah.
I'll tell you something that got exposure. I don't know if you saw it or not, but I almost want to say it's hard to believe that it was on, but it was MSNBC, I guess, some female reporter over there, claiming that the whole 3 North Korean prisoners, that was all a big thing that they, it was a big plot, it wasn't real, and I guess it's sort of like the moon landing.
Yeah, I couldn't resist turning on CNN to see what their coverage of this was. And when I flopped over there about 3:15 or so to see what they were doing in the morning, they're still talking about Russia and Stormy Daniels, and they weren't referring to the prisoners as hostages. They were kind of just like, people that were on a little longer vacation than normal type. I sat there, I'm like, the depths that they will go to find fault with the President of the United States on this. This is a happy day for the entire country. Yeah.
Those 3 prisoners were wearing suits. They weren't wearing prison uniforms.
No. But,
The guy stepped off the plane in Alaska.
Yeah.
Let me off. I haven't seen daylight in I don't know how long.
Yeah.
I'm sure that if that's what's your primary thing is seeing the sun.
Yeah.
Getting out of that prison uniform might be the number one thing you might want to do.
Yeah, it's remarkable, and they, 2 of them were doing hard labor, breaking rocks literally every day. And again, this was a seminal moment, I think, in the president's presidency. And what a great day for America. We brought home 3 people that were going to most likely die in a prison in North Korea. And now we're sitting down with the leader of North Korea. South Korea is talking that President Bush needs to get the Nobel Peace Prize. We've got the Iranian deal going south. We're not, going to war with them. And, this was a really good week for President Trump. We collected 5 of their ISIS top, terrorists. I don't know that he could have had, a better week. And it just, the fact that the media continues to be up on him, if they think this was propaganda, did they say that when Obama brought Bergdahl's parents to the Rose Garden and made that speech? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The other thing is, talking about bringing home these guys, I read an article, I think it was yesterday, and it was talking about how Trump, they said, boy, a lot of people don't realize that he has already brought, I think it was 12 or 14 hostages. 14, and 2 of them were the basketball, or 2 or 3 of them were the basketball players.
Yeah.
And people would say, well, that's no big deal.
Oh, they would have been in jail. That's a big deal.
China is a big deal.
Yeah. Huge deal.
Wow.
Yeah.
And they don't want to talk about another thing in your report. They don't want to talk about, John Kerry and the
Yep.
Jerry, what he's doing is 1,000 times worse than what.
Yeah, and it's my understanding that they haven't even opened an investigation into that. And until this administration starts opening investigations into people like that, then like Mike Pence said yesterday, it's time to end this Mueller probe. This is going nowhere. Yeah.
Gonna take our break, and then we're gonna continue. Can you bring your flag? You spell that last name V-V-O-R-A-K. She's everywhere, Facebook, all over the place. VKTReport.com.
Yeah, well, I mean, we just think of the Islamic terrorists typically as hardliners. The Ayatollah and the clerics and the mullahs that run all that stuff, they are, they run an Islamic regime, and women are in burqas, and if you take your hijab off, you can be arrested, stoned. It's a hardline regime. They control all the money. The Revolutionary Guard controls the secret police that go out and drive people away in the dark of the night, never to be seen from again, and put them in prisons, commit executions. It's a really no. The nuclear deal had nothing to do with it. Yeah. Yeah, and no, but I think that with Iran, I mean, this administration, especially now that Rudy Giuliani's on the team and Mike Pompeo's over at State, these are people that are very much aligned with these protesters and the organizations that they represent, and we're throwing all of our support behind this group. Unlike Obama, who turned their back on the Green Movement back in 2009. So with our added help, they're going to be able to attain this. But the nuclear deal was never about human rights. It was never about terrorism. It was never about, you give us the money, we're going to fix up our roads and make sure all of our people have food and jobs and things like that. That was never a part of the deal. And that's why when the money got delivered, which, by the way, the money that we gave up to them was impounded by the U.S. So it's not, we didn't give them $150 billion. That was actually Iranian investments that were locked into banks here, and we just simply let them come back and get into their bank accounts. But the people that the money belonged to never got it, because the regime went into the banks in Iran and raided the banks and emptied the accounts. So, No, but the pallets of cash that went over, I think, I haven't got a confirmation on it, but I think the $1.5 billion that went was most likely interest on that money that we held up. So that would be taxpayer money. So that part would be taxed. Yeah. Well, yeah. And remember the picture of those young men that were in a little dinghy-style boat in the Iranian. Remember how they were treated? They had guns on their faces, and they were, hovered down like they were, scared little sheep. And those days are gone. Trump's not going to allow any kind of those, any of those scenes to play out. And there's a new sheriff in town, and he's so chaotic that nobody knows what he's going to do. And that's the best thing to negotiate with North Korea and other countries, is like, they have no idea if you had a bad night that's taking it out on them, or is he going to be the nice guy we're going to negotiate, and it's going to be a good thing, a good day's work. So.
Before the next visit.
Alrighty, thank you.